Hello, hello. Welcome all. It's been a while since I've hopped on. So, going live because I've tried to record this quite a few times and I don't have enough space on my phone. So, Spirit's trying to get me to just hop on live and to suit up and show up. But I want to talk about some of the pieces we were working through in February and what's arrived here in March and what um, at least I'm working through. And this one's going to be more catered to the embodiers that are really calling forth the embodiment and what's been going on, what's been transpiring. So this message might change depending on who shows up in the room. If you're coming in, I just want to say welcome. Hello, Heather. I want to say welcome. I'm going to start off with purifying the field here and purifying our space. So if you've ever been in my live streams, I might do some energy work, which is probably going to be the case. So if you don't want energy work, you can just sit around and stay, but it's a piece of what I do. So I'm just going to begin to connect everyone. And so I'm going to talk about what happened through February. So February for me, we found an arrival of a lot of Unity codes. And these Unity power codes were essentially, yeah, I got the call today that I need to do an update. It's been 2 weeks, and something said, you know what, you need an update. I was like, okay, fine. And I'm going to discuss why I've kind of been offline and what's been going on. So February was the arrival of all these Unity codes. And, in the beginning, I had seen it as it's unification of us with other people. It's our interpersonal relationships and our dynamics and how we were showing up and connecting with others. But really, February was a time of unifying our aspects. So as the light quotient is increasing here on Earth, and we're having a lot more darkness dissolve and breaking down of all the structures, what's happening is we're finding that we're now returning more of our aspects, especially those that have called forth and stepped into the embodiment role. So what this has been is really been an arrival of more pieces of us and allowing them to be in the body, allowing them to be comfortable here now. So what's really interesting is when we start to step into the phase of embodiment. So like embodying our higher self, embodying our galactic self, embodying our angelic self, embodying our dragon self. What happens is the frequency that aspect holds within our body really it doesn't suit well a lot of the times with the quote unquote humans. And I'm not saying the humans from a perspective of like greater than, less than, as we see a lot of negative connotations brought forth in, I've seen at least in the community when we start to talk about the human. I am a human, but what we're discussing is allowing these soul parts and the unified soul essence speak through us unconditionally in a place where it had been so dense for so long that it couldn't be here. And so this is what caused a lot of fragmentation and a lot of us not really being in our true power. And so through that, what's occurring now is, at least for me and why I've been offline, is the arrival of these aspects, but then how can they suit up and show up and be themselves authentically and unconditionally day to day? Because what happens is, like, so especially when we step into the embodiment of the master, the embodiment of our personal master, what happens is it can kind of become almost feeling a little stoic and not so what I would coin fluffy light worker, depending on when that embodiment piece first comes in. So when it first comes in, the master is very like all-knowing and very not so swayed emotionally. And so you can kind of come across or feel a little bit stoic, a little bit more kind of cold. It's not, that's just the kind of the all-knowing infinite self. And so what happens for me is okay, how can this piece reside here but get used to walking with this form and speaking with this form without it becoming cold, and almost quote unquote too powerful. Because once again, it's like when we were stepping into the role of like, how do we step into the power infinite self? We now have to work through all of our power distortions. So then all of a sudden we might become too swayed in either direction, so we can work out that distortion associated with that essence or with that aspect that we were calling forth and embodying. And that's what February had been for me, was calling forth all of these aspects, allowing them to sit comfortably in the human. How do they suit up and show up? But then also, how can I still be that compassionate individual and be able to hold space for, you know, for the journey, and allow this essence to sit here and to shine. Especially, you know, when I've been working through the blueprinting of the divine masculine template and how it holds within. You know, you take a, it's like, so for instance, I know many divine feminines that when they stepped into their divine feminine role, all of a sudden, you know, up came the distorted masculine to come forth and to start to work out their own personal distortions, but also because that light isn't seen in a lot of the world, and so it'll start to trigger off things. And so we start to see more focus on the controls, the manipulation, the way the man shows up and pushes the woman around. And now the feminine has to set boundaries. You know, the divine feminine now has to start to set boundaries with herself and with others, to show, hey, listen, we're in a new world. You can't react to me with those older templates or those older threads running. It's just not going to work. And the same for me has happened, and I find with a lot of embodiers, when they start to show up with these aspects, is like in the divine masculine template, how do I show up in an area or around distorted masculines and not allow that triggering to call forth me lowering my vibration into now meeting that aspect where it's at, but being able to hold that space as the compassionate witness of holding that template. And so this is what the unity had brought forth is, okay, it starts macro, or it starts micro, and then it works out to the macro. So how does this suit up and show up, and how do I wear this on a day-to-day, and how do I allow this aspect become the driver of this temporal form, to where it can still be a compassionate healer and it can still show up without having to go down or start to distort. And that's what the unification piece through February was for me, and how I'm suiting up and showing up on my day-to-day. And this is something I discussed quite a few times in my videos, is how are we showing up every single day? But how are we showing up allowing those infinite aspects to speak through us and to be there, and allow people the opportunity to then step into full embodiment and suit up and show up as that every single day. Because even in full embodiment, it gets a little drifty, ungrounded, and a lot of the experiences lately, yeah, exactly, without frying the suit. That's kind of what that's what it's been feeling like. And you know, showing up as this can be tricky at first, especially when, you know, being a creator and being a teacher. Okay, I have to find ways to make this digestible for the human. And I say for the human because I'm speaking of the self of when we step into the infinite self, no words can really describe it. So now it's about grounding this information, and grounding in such a way, how can I vocalize it to be able to express this to another individual? As there's many that are doing this. There are many blueprinters and many teachers out there that are finding a way to be able to ground this into reality. But when we are starting to step into the infinite and we become the entire experience, it's like you don't really want to vocalize it. So a lot of this has been self-reflection and figuring out, okay, how do I connect with self? And find a way to be able to vocalize what I'm going through, because I've never gone through it before. And so finding the words to express it has been very interesting. Through the unity piece, as we're recovering all these aspects, we now have to work out the karma and the distortions and the programming that are associated with those aspects. And that's what we're finding. That's what we were finding through February for me. There was a lot of galactic karma that was working through other layers. And also really the focus on the war narrative from the Orion Wars, and how that is suited up and showed up as the controls here, and how like the victimizer software is occurring, looking at the pieces with codependency and narcissism, you know, two ends of the spectrum when we were looking at the healer dynamic, and how that also engages with the controls, the quote unquote controls. Okay. Now for March, okay. In on 3-3, there was a big arrival of union codes. So it went in from unity to union, and the union codes, the union pillars, are essentially the divine masculine, divine feminine pillars. The Christos Sophia and the Christos templates arriving, and because of that, it's causing now us to look at our feminine and masculine distortions and resolving those patterns in that wounding. So we're going to see this occur differently for different people based on what you need to work through. So I wouldn't say that, you know, a greater portion of the collective is working through one chunk or another. We're working through those individually. I see a lot of feminine embodiments, or those that are in a feminine body, working through their masculine distortions a little bit more. Me, I'm working through my feminine distortions, and it's like every day something new is popping up. So to be able to say, hey, you know, in this update, this is what we're working through, that's just not the case anymore. And this is part of that, the new phases. There's now so much going on with different levels of the collective, and depending on what reality stream you have landed in, that there's no one size fits all with this. But right now, we're all working through the masculine, and at least with the arrival of the feminine and masculine stuff, we're all working through that at a collective level. And we're seeing that, okay, with the breaking down of the controls, okay? So now that we're seeing this start to diminish and quote unquote demolish, what we're actually seeing is that we've worked through a big chunk of masculine distortion, and now those things and those systems are starting to break down. And it's really beautiful to witness. And that's been part of this journey lately, is just becoming observant of the experience and like really breathing in the fact that like this stuff is on its way out, and it's really, really, really beautiful. And so with that right now, if you're working through, you know, distortions with, you know, the mother and the father, or you're working through your interpersonal distortions, it's gonna be happening. And I just want to state too that this weekend, so in about 4 hours, we're going to get some diamond light streams that are going to be hitting the planet, and they are going to be working through this entire weekend. So I was told that the diamond light codes will be coming in about 4 hours, and it's going to be very much so a very high vibrational weekend, a very galactic weekend. But because of that, there's going to be more stuff lifting off. And so be prepared for a fun weekend where some people might be in bed. You know, it really depends on what you're going through. I'm actually going to be fasting for today and tomorrow because of some integrations and some healings that have gone on, and some upgrades. And so that's something I'm going to be doing towards practicing self-care. But right now, the best thing for all of this is we are starting to work through these things, because I noticed that there are some people that don't have a psycho-emotional awareness, and it's an important component, I believe, to the ascension process and breaking down our own individual programming. Psycho-emotional awareness is understanding why the feelings occur, because there's an underlying thought form or an underlying thread that is inducing the creation of that emotion. And this is really knowing, like, hey, am I picking up on the collective stuff right now? Like, if you're feeling something and you're unaware where it's coming from, am I picking up the collective? Am I picking up Gaia's pain? Is there an underlying thought form that is residing, that is creating or fueling this? It's really a time as we start to ascend into the higher levels and the higher realms to become more aware of who we are. And so ask yourself, you know, every single day, this is a process that I've been starting recently, is who am I? Where am I from? What is my purpose here? And asking those 3 questions and then dialoguing it, writing it out, and allowing that aspect to come through. So because of this, you know, we're so much more than just, you know, one aspect or from one place. A lot of us are made up of so many different parts. So then what it's allowing is this aspect or this essence to come through and to speak what it is to you, and getting more in touch with who you are. And because of that, we now can start to build a relationship with the inner dialogue. The inner dialogue is the processes that are running, the thought forms that are occurring in our interactions every single day. So when someone says this, I react in this way. What we start to notice is a vocalization, what I would call, quote unquote, a vocalization of the subconscious mind. The vocalization of the subconscious mind really helps towards hearing what's going on. Now, the issue is that if you have a behavioral health diagnosis, or you think or you got to work through any of that distortion, you might think, oh, I'm hearing things. Da, 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 da. You also might start to think that your guides are talking to you. And this is where we get in touch with the self and recognize the subconscious patterns, because now that's how we start to break down the programming and be able to say no to those things. So, as we are aware, there's a lot of programming and control that is spat out in our media. And it's also transmitted through, electronic frequencies, lower electronic frequencies that can then start to create thought forms that occur without us even knowing that they're occurring. And there's a lot of science that's proving this and showing this. But right now, I'm not going to go into that too much, just because I don't want to fuel any more of that, because, this channel is created to induce fear. What it is to induce awareness, so then you can do something about it to change it. Anything you encounter in your day-to-day, there's something that you can do towards changing this, including the big quote-unquote controls and the programming. I and others are living proof that there is something that you can do on your own and with the help of others to be able to work out this programming. And the biggest thing is really getting in touch with who you are, what you need, where you're from, and really building up the psycho-emotional awareness. Because now you can start to break down that programming. And as soon as you start to break it down and you start to say no to it and you call back your sovereignty, you're going to notice that you can encounter things way differently in your day-to-day. Triggers that occur, becoming more aware of the energy behind what someone is saying too. Because there is still a lot of things running in people's fields that they will project onto you, especially being highly awakened and being able to kind of cast off that quote unquote weaponry and be able to clear it quicker, because you become aware of what it is, because you're aware of the dynamic of the energy behind the words, but also how it's existed in your own internal system. This is something that I've been doing for years, and it's evolving more and more and more, but it really can be started as simply as asking those questions to yourself every single day and creating a meditative practice over this. Take 5 minutes a day. Ask yourself, who am I? Where am I from? What is my purpose here? And just allow that aspect to speak through you in whatever way, shape, or form it can. You might find a vocalization occurring. You might find you want to start writing. You might want to create something that can be able to help to create that vocalization in whatever way, shape, or form it is. But building that relationship with self will really help to become more aware of the different things we're working through. You'll be able to actually hear the underlying current in response to your environment and become aware of how you are reacting versus just being emotional. Because there's some people that they just have an emotional reaction, they don't know why. So this is why I think it's really important. So through this right now, if you're being called forth to embody more of like your higher self and your higher aspects, what happens through this is that you're going to notice yourself starting to vibrate higher and landing in higher reality streams. And this is where we lose touch of time. And I want to discuss this because this is just coming forth right now, and I think it's pertinent to either the people in the room or the collective that are going to be witnessing this. So basically, as we are clearing the imprinting from old timelines and from things that have happened in this lifetime too, we now don't have such a high electrical or emotional charge to that time. So we start to kind of lose track of time almost. Past experiences don't hold such a huge energetic imprint, because once again, it's not sticking anymore. We've dissolved a lot of that, and that timeline's collapsed. So you might begin to feel like you're forgetting things that have happened in the past. That's completely normal. That kind of what you would think of as like an amnesia or a fog is actually just that past imprint is not holding such an energetic charge anymore, and that timeline has collapsed or is in the process of collapsing. When that starts to occur, you now start to hop into a higher reality stream, and because of that, a lot of the drastic imprinting can't hold or can't stick in those streams. And this is why we start to notice, in the higher self, in the mastery embodiment, in the galactic embodiment, that we're not so emotionally charged, is because those emotions they just don't stick in the dreams anymore. It's a completely different way of operating. And so becoming aware of this, like if you're embodying, your higher self and you're feeling a little bit more stoic, completely normal, completely normal. The idea though is that we can start to become a lot more compassionate now in how we are handling these aspects, especially, like when I'm embodying dragon aspect, It's very a little bit more brutal and a little bit more harsh, especially with what I know of my dragon aspect. But it's that essence. When we are working with that essence in meditation, always important to kind of like come back to self and get into your centering and not allow that essence to work through in such a drastic way where it can start to freak out or scare off other people. And it's very real. It may sound a little strange, but you can actually go into meditation and really talk and work with all these integrated aspects and let them come forward at different times. So, like for instance, last night, I had an aspect return that was very fragile, and it was just not wanting to. We had to go out and do some Uber Eats, and so we were out in the city, and all the noise and everything was like creating all this panic and anxiety because my sensitivity is increasing. So then, I called my teams and I called in to help, like, just make us feel safe and supported. And they were like, okay, let's bring forth your Lyran essence now, because your Lyran essence can be able to hold space for this adventure a little bit more. So I allowed that Lyran essence to come forward, and I noticed that I could handle myself better out in the world, and I felt more, quote unquote, powerful. I felt safer. I felt more like I wasn't in the role of being the prey. Let's just put it that way. Like, the predator prey in that contrast. I didn't feel so small. And so recognize that you can pull forth these essences of you as you learn to discover what you are made up of and everything you're made up of. You can call that forward as the dominated kind of quote unquote essence to handle certain situations, especially when it comes to conquering fear, conquering sensitivity, or if you're feeling unsafe. And so it's really important to do that. You can also call forth, like if you're really down and dreary or you're in an environment that's very kind of heavy, you can call forth, if you have a fairy essence, bring forth your fairy essence to ignite the joy and magic into that. It's one of those that's really fun to work with until we start to get to the point that we're just a unified soul and all of those aspects speak through us as one. If you're finding difficulty as you're integrating different aspects, especially some of the really sensitive, high vibrational galactic aspects, you can allow different ones to work through and let them become used to this density. There's a lot of aspects of us that have never been able to really be here fully in this density because of everything that was in place. But as the light is increasing, we're having more of these aspects come back. And so we can allow them to be safe and be here and take time with that. Take time with yourself, be gentle with yourself. If you're feeling lots of anxiety, or it's just there's too much noise in the environment, get to a place where that is going to match your frequency. And I find for me, out in nature. This is something that me and Samantha have been working through as we're kind of working through our different pieces, is making sure we're getting out into nature more. Because as soon as our feet hit the grass, it's like, oh, I could breathe. Okay, good. All right, I'm here now. I'm unified. And it really does help. It really does help. So with that, that's kind of what's been going on through me through February, and what I'm seeing through March is more embodiment. With the light streams that are coming through this weekend, there's been a few reports coming out about what it's doing with breaking down the cabal and breaking down the economic structures, and we're seeing that dwindling. Just be mindful that your body sensitivity might increase. People might be going through their things. It's going to be a very fun galactic weekend. But I'll tell you this, the best thing to do during these times is really to not pay attention to media. As soon as we literally said no to anything that is going on in our external, that is promoting fear or promoting whatever it may be promoting, our life has gotten so much better. Like in San Antonio right now, there's a state of emergency because of the coronavirus, but it doesn't block us, because that's once again not a part of our reality stream. And this is something that's coming forth to discuss right now, is to recognize that all of these reality streams are existing here now on this earth. So like our home is very high vibrational and very loving and very supporting because of the energy work that I've put into this place, and because we've got our crystals everywhere and just all the work we've done. As soon as we step out the door and we get into the car and we go downtown San Antonio, we're now interacting with different reality streams. And so because of that, like we might be living in, 5D plus here in our physical body, but we're going to be interacting with the lower frequencies as well. But recognizing that they may be there, but they may not interact with your reality stream because you're just not of that vibrational match. Those older reality streams that are fueling fear, that are fueling chaos and discord, if you're not living in that fear and that discord or giving power to it, it's going to be there, but it's not going to interact with you. So this is the idea of becoming just kind of sure with self and blocking out the external, and becoming the neutral point observer of who you are. And your experience is really important until you expand into the infinite self. And then you are the entire experience, which I'm not going to go into there right now with how we are the entire experience, but it's a really important part of the unification. And thank you so much, Inara. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate you. Much love and respect, and waves of light sent to you. Um, so yeah, right now is it's such a beautiful time to be alive. Such a beautiful time, especially as we are working through everything we are working through. I'm really not suiting up and showing up here as much, just because there's been a lot of different pieces that I'm working through, and I'm holding sacred space for myself to go through the changes that are going on. But there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'll be coming up on a live stream to talk about that, because I'm gonna be leaving soon. I'm gonna be walking the earth. I've discussed that before, but the plans are in place now, and it's set in stone. And I know my first couple of places I need to go. But with that, I'm being called to lean on my tribe more, there's going to be a lot of content created, and I'm not working through distortion on the road that I'll be doing, including holding ceremony at sacred sites if the site allows me. So there's a bunch of sites that I have in mind that I want to go to, but I'll be doing healing ceremonies at that site as long as the elements, the masters, and the guides there allow me to. So once again, I have to suit up at the site and give my offering and make sure that it's okay to do that before I do that. But I'm going to be walking very soon, so I'm not going to be here. And even though there's a lot of fear associated with that because of my own personal things, I have to recognize that we're in a new reality now. There's a lot more lifting off that's going to be able to allow us to walk and be free and be sovereign in our walk and be able to engage with beautiful tribe members and really have a lot of fun in doing what we want to do on our mission. So there's going to be some details coming up more about that. But there's a lot of services that are coming out right now to help to afford this trip, because I know it's going to get expensive. So for that, I've got my March calendar up on my website on unifiedmasters.com /group-sessions. There's a link in my community page to that. So tonight I do have a group session. We're going to be focusing on self-worth. So far, thank you so much, Jacob. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone's support. Really rad. So tonight I do have I have a group session. We're focusing on self-worth. I've got one person signed up, and we're gonna focus on clearing some of that stuff, and really trying to call forth more embodiment of our infinite self and our higher self. So then the self-worth piece doesn't have to become so prevalent, especially since we find self-worth only existing in the I-ego self and not so much in the infinite self and higher self, because we don't need any external validation when we land in with those higher essences, and we're working with those the embodiment phases of those. We don't need the external to validate to us anymore what we are, because we already are. And so I'll be working through that and working through some embodiment pieces of calling forth our higher self and all of those lost, purified aspects, and allowing them to sit unified in our soul, and to sit in our body. And so I'm really excited to do that. So if you want to get on that, that's a completely donation-based. So I have 2 donation-based group clearings that happen every single month. And I've also got some galactic shamanism stuff that's happening as well, and that's $33, as well as some other activations coming up. So I'm actually being called to do an equinox activation, because this equinox is huge this month. It's going to be, I believe it's March 20th. March equinox is going to be gigantic. It's going to be off the chains. There's a lot of really beautiful passageways and gateways we're working through, and we worked through a ton in the 333 gates in December, and then working through these unity codes and now these union codes. This is a really big time to be here now, and to be alive and to be a part of this process. So really just follow your heart at the end of the day, and you won't go wrong. I did say I was going to discuss a piece on codependency, and a piece on narcissism, which is something that I worked on in a group session a little while ago. I'm still kind of diving into my own perspectives of that, and the way it's affected my soul before I come out and create a full piece on that. But there's going to be a whole healing that I'm going to come forth with, discussing that dynamic and how it exists also within the healer role. There's a lot of friends that I have that are healers, and it's really an important piece as we're blueprinting the new healing guidelines. and the new earth healing is recognizing that these pieces exist, and to make sure we don't step into the codependency piece, being a healer in whatever shape or form that might be. Or then also allowing someone to give their power to us to the point where it can become controlling or narcissistic. And it's a very important piece that we see in the dynamic with the systemic controls, as well as the dynamic that we see between our interactions with masculine and feminine, depending on our parents, and how prevalent it is in society. And we're seeing that right now. We're seeing a breaking down of the sociopath. We're seeing a breaking down of the narcissist. We're seeing a breakdown of these controls. And so as we are internally shifting these pieces out, we're going to start to see it happening through the collective, and we're going to see the major controls start to crumble as a result of that. So it's really beautiful time to be alive. Like, I noticed that I work through something on the micro, and then a few weeks later we start to see it really affected in the macro, and it's really like awe-inspiring to be like, wow, this change is really occurring, and it's happening now. March, really quickly, March really does feel like January 2020 of what we projected. So we were like, January 2020, all these beautiful things. We had our pieces that we had to work through the first few months. But I have to say that March, the energy of March right now, at least for me individually, feels much of what we were projecting January 2020 to be like. So it feels like we had some chunks that we had to work through individually, but now we can kind of just like sit back and enjoy the show and allow everything to arrive that we need, and allow ourselves to be ourselves authentically, and to meet more tribe, and to allow those people to suit up and to show up, be open to receiving, and really just live in our joy unconditionally. So everyone, thank you so much for coming on out. Much love and respect to you all. I'm updating a lot on Instagram. So if you go over to my Instagram, please go check it out, Unified Masters. I'm posting a lot of light language drawings on there. So that's something I've been diving into too, as I'm gaining back more aspects. And something Samantha and I have been doing is, I'm speaking more light language, but I'm also drawing light language. So there's a lot of activations and pieces that I share over there as well, and updates, especially when I'm not being called. Check out that channel. I'm more prevalent on there than I am on the Facebook. Me and Facebook just don't get along. Me and Facebook don't get along too well. Every time I make an account, they delete it after 5 minutes, and I have a master's page, but I choose not to engage with what Facebook is doing, even though Facebook is integrated with Instagram, and I'm not going to get into that. But anyways, so also updates on my website too with what's going on in March, and just keep checking back, guys, because I'm posting a lot on the community page with quick updates, and the videos are kind of being less and less right now because there's some stuff I'm working through, and some upgrades and some things I'm really excited about bringing forth, and so I'm excited to bring that forward to all of you. Anyways, much love and respect to you all. With that, I'm going to close down and disconnect my energy from this session. Remember, this weekend, light streams are coming in, so be prepared for that. Make sure to rest, drink lots of water, drink lots of electrolytes, eat healthy, high vibrational foods, Epsom salt baths. Get out and exercise if you need to. Let's shift this stuff out, and let's enjoy this beautiful galactic weekend ahead. So much love and respect to you all. I love you all unconditionally, and I will see you on the other side. Namaste.